This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Ryan is not here today. He's at training in San Antonio, so he told me you're in charge. Hopefully, I don't forget anything. We'll call this meeting of the Technical Advisory Committee to order at 9:31. We have a forum and go into opportunity for public comment. If there's anybody online or in the room who'd like to make public comment.
There's 7 individuals online, no public comments.
Thanks, Anita. Next is staff update. Here we have our upcoming meetings. I know normally we just show the slide and keep moving, but we're staff SIGPOG. Our other role, we have a statewide training on February 7th, and so we didn't have on the agenda to move that technical advisory committee meeting, but if everybody would be okay with it, we'd like to suggest moving that back a week to February 14th. We would have the policy board ratify that change, so staff can attend the statewide training down in Austin. I'll keep going then if anyone has thoughts at the end. We have a new representative, Mayor Cantu, with the City of Bartlett, was appointed as the small and rural representative. So she'll be serving for the rest of this year, and welcome, Mayor. An update on the audit that KTMPO is happening. We have an exit conference scheduled this week, and we'll provide another update probably next meeting when we have a final report from the auditors. I do not know much more than that, but Uriah will probably be providing that information. The next item is TransPod. Uriah and I had a meeting with TransPod, and didn't come to TAC, but if you're at policy board back in October, they're that Hyperloop company that's looking at building a track between Laredo and Fort Worth. We had a meeting with them last week to talk about the potential of a test track in the Killeen-Temple area, and they seem to be open to that idea. We're proposing it along I-14. Staff is working on sending them some information and a map and some other information for consideration. Not really sure if that will happen, but we'll keep providing updates as we have conversations with them. And then lastly is our MTP project call, MTP updates. We're pushing back the subjective scoring deadline to Friday, February 2nd. There's a lot of projects, so I wanted to give some more time for that. If you did have questions on that or would like further clarification, staff's always available. You can send me an email. I'll probably be sending out a reminder here with that new deadline for scoring soon. I think the last thing I have on the MTP, I sent out an email this morning to people that we had heard interest from who are wanting to serve on the steering committee. We're planning to meet after policy board meeting in 2 weeks to talk about the goals and objectives and the vision of the MTP. So if you did not get an email and you weren't interested, I think all of you on here, I sent that to Andrew and Bobby and Jason and maybe a couple others. But we are happy to include more people if we need to include more. And then lastly is our air quality. And for the month of December, the Killeen station was 43 parts per billion and the Temple station was 42 parts per billion. And that's all I have for staff update, unless there's any questions. Any opposition to potentially moving the February meeting back a week to 14th?
I'm good with it on condition. You bring me a big shaped box of chocolate. Sorry. It doesn't affect me.
Yeah. Great, we'll move on to the approving, regarding approval of minutes from the December 6th, 2023 meeting. They're put it in your packets. Motion,
Move to approve. Second.
Bobby, thanks, Jason. The motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5 is regarding resolution 2024-01 supporting the FY24 safety PM1 performance targets for KTMPO. Now there's some more information in your packet, and we've had over the last couple of meetings, a lot of conversations about this, and also with our excess gray safety action plan, a lot of conversations about safety. Just to recap, we have to set targets for the five performance measures, just the number of fatalities per million vehicle miles traveled, number of serious injuries per million vehicle miles traveled, and the number of non-motorized fatalities and non-motorized serious injuries. And we have to adopt these by February 27th. And y'all have been a part of those conversations. I think we've heard from the safety working group that was interested in looking at an aggressive reduction and not necessarily a goal of 0 by a certain date. But the last TAC meeting, there were some other comments about a goal of 0, which is what TechStot does. Go to the next slide. Staff has taken all that consideration, and we've also had some additional conversations with Killeen-Temple because I know there was interest in making sure targets we're setting are aligning with the policy commitment that we have to adopt for the safety action plan. We have 3 options on here. I believe in the resolution, the draft resolution in your packet, option 3, no, I think option 2. Option 2, thank you. Is the one that, or option 1 for fatalities and option B for serious injuries is what the numbers are. Which would be the 0 by 2050. So it's a linear reduction in fatalities each year, and then a 25% reduction for the serious injuries. I have some graphs here. We're not sold on this, but this is what, after all our conversations, this is what staff is recommending. It kind of feel like it's in the middle between what TechStot is doing and also the feedback we've had from TAC and Policy Board. So on this graph, the option 1, which is that darker blue line, is kind of what we're looking at. And then on the serious injuries, it's option B, which is that farthest, that top line there. We don't have to recommend adoption of or recommend approval of the resolution. We do have until next month, but if there is agreement or consensus, then we are more than happy we prefer to pass the resolution and have the targets adopted. A couple last thoughts I'll leave with you, and from our conversations with Killeen-Temple, I think these targets, they're a starting point. We'll do this again next year. We're going to have more data. We'll be able to do a better job. We're not intending this to be like, this is it. We're done and we're not changing it. And then as far as the relationship between the policy commitment and these targets, talking with Dan and his team, I think the policy commitment is going to be coming over the target. So if there's a little bit of, they don't match up quite well this time around, we can next year adjust the targets to fall under the policy commitment. And so there's not really a big concern that these targets are going to affect the policy commitment. I think rather it's the other way around with policy commitment. It will inform the targets. I've talked a lot. I'll open the floor for discussion, comments, questions.
To the last point you made about adjusting, the targets. Lee and I, we went back and forth on it at the policy board last month. Is let's separate the goals from the targets. The goal is 0, but the target is right now the line's going up. Let's slow the rate that the line is going up. So let's reduce that rate. So then we set a target, and then we continue to track the data. We determine what's realistic. 25% just turns out to be on the list. We can always change that. And I know last time Christine and I talked about it, 2 TACs before. We looked at 25% and went, that's a bit aggressive. I would be more comfortable going back to like 5 or 10% now. But I'm going to ask a question to the group. Because and if I miss something, Bobby, throw something out. If we decide that this is what we want to do, we're the only MPO that's going to be setting safety targets independently of what the state does. I think we start with the assumption of let's set these targets. If we're going to set targets, what should the targets be? What should the numbers? And we've kind of already jumped ahead of it. Should we do them? We've been kind of workshopping. If we do it, what should it look like? But I think we need to make sure that we're firmly decided. Yes, we want to be out there more aggressive than what Texas is. And I think the answer is yes. I'm good with it. Like I've been on both sides. I've been on the side, on the city side, trying to advance projects that are going to bring that number down. So I'm on board either way, as long as the ultimate goal is we're safe. And we just need to make sure, as a committee, we're united in saying yes, we want to do our own thing. And once we've made that decision, we're going to pass this resolution. And then we can argue about 25% and arbitrary numbers, just fairly, and everybody can have fun arguing around it.
And what's the benefit of our doing our own resolution?
Doing our own, setting our own targets. Or passing a resolution, setting targets for the MPO. I think the benefit is we have a much better idea of where we're actually at as a region in terms of addressing safety. I think it's on the forward edge. If we adopt the state's targets, they're large numbers. We can't really compare those numbers with how we're doing regionally. If we set our own targets, we might not see it this year or next year, but maybe 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we can look back and say, okay, here's what we said we wanted to do. How off were we? And I was talking with Dan, and sometimes some of the larger safety projects they're considering for the action plan, it can take several years for us to see the benefits of those, just because it takes time to construct them and then have them in action. So it is a longer term thing, but I think if we don't set our own targets, don't have targets based on the data just in that region, there's no way for us to compare really and track our progress.
I would add to that there's an optics to it. And this becomes a little bit bureaucratic. SITCOG, KTMPO is committed to the SS4A program. And even though we believe that those funds are, not just the planning funds, but the implementation funding. Now, if I recall correctly, for the region is about $50 million. But it's also my understanding that those funds are competitive grant funds. We're competing with other entities out there that are participating in the SS4A program. I think this takes an aggressive, it takes a step forward in saying we are being proactive in analyzing our own region. Above and beyond that, I also, inherently believe in local control. The state does provide us information, and it's good information, but it's not tailored to our region. And I think that not just from an eye candy standpoint, but a practical, implementing a plan. Because that's what I see these as, whether they're targets or goals or something. Those are things that stimulate a plan, and your plan really becomes, how do you achieve these? These are out there, but how do I get there? So just from Roger Miller's seat, I think that the zero deaths, roadway deaths by 2050, I don't know that that's achievable, but I think we should strive for that.
Agree.
I mean, within reason. I mean, can't put bubble wrap on everybody's car. So then when we look at serious injuries, I think we have the ability to have more influence on that than really just the zero fatalities. So if we were to adopt something, and our plan development really focused on serious injuries, I think the tertiary effect becomes that we're going to reduce fatality. I mean, and again, that's the internal part of it, and then the external part of it is I think this is a piece without any guarantees out there that helps us be more competitive when we start looking at the implementation grant funding that's available from US DOT. Because again, SS4A is a federal program, it's not a state program. So anything above and beyond, that we get from the state, that's good. But this is another direct line that's competitive nationwide that I don't know that it's going to help us, but we can make the argument that we're applying for a regional security or the safety action plan. We're doing regional analysis, and we have set regional goals, and we need your assistance in being able to do this. So I'll get off my soapbox.
So as a question, being a first-time member, is the plan developed within this committee as well? The actual implementation, project selection, or is that kind of done at a?
There's a lot of plans. We have a MPO plan, long range plan and we're currently going through project scoring, and we'll select projects. And we specifically, the MPO and SITCOG got a grant for a safety action plan which will be specific for some safety projects. There may be overlap between the two. That's being developed by a consultant. We have a task force that some members of this committee are on, but it's kind of parallel to what this body is doing.
Yeah, the reason I ask is, obviously if you set a target, you want to be able to have a plan that can achieve it. And so as that's being looked at, if this is, and I think it's great because it does say, here's the target, here's where we want to go. I think just as an ask for whenever that plan is being developed, consider the projects where you do have the most impact, and then change those numbers, right? If there's a heat map of here's where all those serious injuries are really happening, a frequency, then you can actually, it won't be just throwing a dart and hoping it lands.
Yeah, right.
But that's what Killeen-Horn under SS4A, Killeen-Horn is the vendor who is developing that. And again, there's intertwining, like they said that much of this is overlap.
Yeah, which is great.
Which does, gives, different perspectives on things. But I just look at it from the standpoint, I don't think there's any plan that we can ever come up with that says zero fatalities. But I don't think we should be out of line with what the state is saying. So again, just Roger Miller Stanton, I think the biggest value in this is focusing on serious injuries, because we can't have fatality without serious injury, serious accident. So if whatever our plans going forward, really focus on that. I think, just by default, we're going to see reductions.
But part of it is and part of the criticism that different members of this group possibly have made, if we adopt state targets, it's kind of like, well, we're federally required to set a target. Okay. We'll just punt and adopt the state's targets. What do we do about it? Loosen budgets. And there's no accountability. And I think that was the point that some people made, was we set our own targets. We're accountable to ourselves, if nothing else, but to the community and to, the federal oversights that we set as target. What have you done to achieve it? Public loves to send us public comments, and that's credit to it either. Getting people's attention. If we tell them we're setting these targets, they will be all over us. What have you done to achieve those targets? Have you reached your goal? No. Are you approaching it? Yes, we're making progress. Let's be accountable. And by being accountable, we're going to look at the data. I'm going to circle back. I'm going to make a point here in a minute. Bear with me. We submitted the Georgetown Railroad Trail for the Transportation Alternatives Fund. I could select it. To reach out to No Heat, he said, if I screwed up, I want to know why. What did I do wrong? Where did I fall short? How did we score? Were we in the running, or were we just in the cellar? Were we the Buffalo Bills? I guess they made it this year. So we met with them, and they showed me, here's where you did well. Here's where you were in the middle of the road. Here's where we scored you poorly, because the data didn't support that this trail is going to reduce the safety problem. Now, maybe it's proactive, and it's going to give people a choice to hike and bike and not be on the street. But there's no data showing that people are hiking and biking in the street now and getting run down. There's no data to support that aspect of that trail. There was other projects, safe routes to school, side paths, other things that were addressing an ongoing problem. There was data to scoring that project on it. We were a little bit above halfway, so we didn't do bad. We could have done better. So if we are back to the safety thing, we are accountable to monitoring that data to make sure we're reaching our goals. And we've submitted a project, whether it's through this board or through SS4A, through some statewide call. We say, look, we've got a plan. This project aligns with the goals in the plan. Here's the data that came out of that plan activity that supports this project. And that's one of the things we scored high on the first time. This trail's in multiple plans. This is a regional thing. Good job. We scored high there. So if we're accountable and we're monitoring that data year after year, we're going to find the areas where project is needed. It's going to be cost effective. It's going to be money well spent. And it'll be, to your, Judge Miller said the word obvious. It's going to look good. It's going to be well received. We can show that it's not just us. And we're meeting a federal requirement. We're trying to make our community safe. No speech complete.
On that, because we were same situation on the same grant opportunities. So the more data you have, show that we're aggressive. We have our own goals, and we have the data to back it up. It helps all of us apply for those grants. It shows so that we are open to the public that yes, we're setting goals. Here's the data. We see and monitor our success or failures and know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look at a state target, state's targets now, they're based on an average of the entire state. So it doesn't represent what we have.
And I'll just reiterate, we're doing this first time next year. 5 years from now, we may everyone, this body may look back and be like, wow, what were those guys doing? But we got to start somewhere. And so I think staff feels like 25% for serious injuries. That's a pretty significant reduction. It's 40 less than the current trend line based on the past 5 years of data that we have. And then, like Judge Miller was saying, I think zero fatalities. I think we have to. I don't want to say hope, but maybe it's not possible. But let's strive for that. And if I think it does look good to FHWA to say, hey, we eventually want to get to zero, and we're going to work for that. We may not see it, but we're going to work for that. So that's where staff's at. I think the resolution, the targets are in there.
And you say that in the resolution, I've said this one, and you make the point. The goal is that we may not reach the goal with our target. We're going to keep, the bullseye is zero fatalities. Okay, are we on the target? Are we getting closer to the 10? Yeah. Maybe the wind drifts if we miss it, and then we fall back here. But we're continuing to strive for it. And, with the 25%, I'm not going to argue that 5% too. Being a smaller region compared to statewide, our numbers are going to fluctuate. So we may have a 25% decrease when Zany may have a 20% increase next year. But I think the idea is that we monitor this year over year, and we're gonna get closer by paying attention.
Just one last thing. I appreciate the grant issue. I appreciate all things. I appreciate politics. We shouldn't be reluctant to set some people call audacious goals in order to preserve human life. That's something that we should be very courageous. That's all. I have an issue with the numbers in the resolution, first year out of the sheet. Just do it. We can work on being more courageous in the future.
Thank you.
Paul, I agree with you. And I would not be opposed, honestly, to the zero fatalities and the 40% reduction. And again, if we fail to achieve it, doesn't necessarily mean failures. It's just that in that plan development, the intent would be to be aggressive with it.
Failure is as much about success as success is about success. So we have to accept that as being human beings as well.
So in the resolution, you indicate that the 25% reduction over the next 5 years, that we'll achieve that over the next 5 years as our target. So my question is, the projects that are funded now, have we evaluated those to see if they even impact the areas where we have seen serious injuries, and if that would equate to 25% or even close, or do we need to re-look at some projects of prioritization?
So I can say, as far as, safety is, there's one or two criteria based on objective data that looks at fatality rate. I don't know if it looks at the total number, but it's how much above or below the average. I think it's a statewide average.
Right. If we're saying in the next 5 years, these projects have already got to be funded and going. So they're already on the books. So have we evaluated those to see if we're even going to get close, and is it only going to move us 5%?
You should say we haven't done it.
It's too soon.
Yeah. You don't have the number. We haven't evaluated.
So the system is not there to really push them into that.
But don't we know where we've had serious injuries, and don't we know if that project is on, if the funded projects were in that same location?
And that's where James said, right now, the way the scoring criteria is set up is it uses evaluation against, they calculate the crash rate for that segment projects on that roadway segment. Okay.
Okay, but maybe I'm not asking
Yeah.
the question correctly with what I'm trying to get at. I get the system's not set up. I get that we're going to reevaluate stuff going forward in a different manner. what I'm saying is, we're saying 25% over the next 5 years. And do we have something in place that's even going to get us close to a reduction? Like, do we currently, just looking at a map that shows where our serious injuries are and overlapping that with the map of our funded projects, how close are we? Are we going 2%? Or are we going to get close to the 25? Just to provide some, while I agree we should go high, but in that small 5-year window, are we going to even get close? Or is it going to look like, I mean, failure is good, but
Yeah.
complete failure could shut you down.
If it's not, then you're setting yourself up.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. We can take a look. I don't know.
I think the answer is it hasn't been looked at and it hasn't been compiled between, because right now, at least with the safety, we're creating those maps. Once we get those maps created, then you can go look at, okay, well, now we have these maps for the projects we already approved. I think that's something that will still have to be done.
Yeah, well, and I would think
Then curtail it to the next call projects, or we get your criteria put together, then we can say, okay, you go look, use this tool.
yeah,
It's better, yeah.
and I'm not worried about it. Get that. I was just looking at that first 5 years, and I know we have a map of crash data. I know we have a map of where our projects are. It's just getting you guys to relate. You see how it impacts.
We can do that. I mean, we have not, but we can do that and provide an update next meeting.
And part of it is, the cities, we should be doing that on the road before we submit the projects to the MPO. So if it's not, it's on all of us. And part of it is the difference between the Safe Streets for All grant versus what the TAC and MPO does overall. Some of those projects aren't going to be safety projects. They may be congestion project that may have a safety benefit. But it may not be in the targeted safety hotspot. And I speak for Temple, we've done both. We've submitted projects because it's the safety one, and others, it's just not a component.
I think it's a good idea to know where we're starting.
Agreed.
And Jason, that's an excellent point. I think we've got, at least I did there until you said that. Got very safety focused. But part of this is regional transportation, mobility. There is a balance there. That not every project is going to have a specific goal of reducing fatalities or serious accidents. It may just be more efficient mobility within the region. But those projects that are identified as, safety is one of the key components. I think you hit the nail on the head. We should really have that map of overlay and say, okay, how is this? Excuse me, how is it potentially impacting that safety? On the map development.
So is that information you provide for us for the next meeting?
Yeah, and we have a tuner. I'll send it out, and I think we need to look not just at the currently funded projects, but the last 5 years, because maybe there's some insight there in looking at before and after, and it won't be perfect because we didn't take a picture before it happened, but we can look at some past data and see if maybe there were some good impacts.
Yeah, you can go back to the data, run a hotspot.
Yeah.
Analysis, and then go 5 years forward.
Yeah.
See where or if the hotspots have changed. Did we have a project there? And this is the $60 million question. Did that project have a direct impact on the safety? Or are there other factors in play? And we've talked about this in safety. Why does the fatality rate go up or down? Maybe it's because we did a safety project, we put warning signs on I-35. Maybe it's because of the mandated airbags, all cars. So the injury rate's going up because people are surviving what would have been a fatal crash 20 years ago. That's not something that we control. So it's understanding, and we made that point with the Safe Streets for All presentation, is that it's a team effort. There's all kinds of different, some of it's automotive engineering, some of it's policy, some of it's law enforcement, a lot of it's driver checks. You know, there's no one party it's Andrew's job. We fail, it's Andrew's fault. We all have a part to play. I think that's another good point to keep in mind. So, yeah, we can set aggressive targets. Do like we've done with the congestion management process. Here was the congestion data before project came in. Here's what we see as the delay now. Was that project effective? We say yes, it was. No, it wasn't. Either way, we probably learned something as we reach. So that should be part of that accountability, is that we have that feedback after action analysis. Are we getting where we need to be?
Okay, well, thanks everyone for the discussion. Any last thoughts? If not, we'll motion for the resolution.
Adopt resolution, propose a resolution for adoption as this.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. All right, motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Soon. Item number 6 is regarding FY 2023 annual performance and expenditure report, APER. Each fiscal year, every MPO is required to submit a report on how we spend our funds versus the planning budget and our BWP, and outlines also our accomplishments. The MPO submitted this report back in December, right before the holidays, to TxDOT. They had some comments, edits for us, and actually this morning sent an email that it was approved by FHWA. We've last few years been sharing that report with the TAC and Policy Board just for informational purposes. If you have comments, questions, I'm happy to answer those. I think we didn't include it in the packet, but it was sent out with the email. Comments or questions? Well, look through it later and have any, feel free to email us back with comments or questions. We're on item number 7, which is regarding an update on the KTMPO MTP steering committee. And realize I jumped the gun earlier and talked about this as an update. Again, the objective of this steering committee, is to review the MPP vision, guiding principles, goals, and objectives. We're planning to meet immediately after Policy Board on the 24th. There were several members of TAC included on, or who expressed interest: Andrew, Bobby, Jason, and Christina. And then a couple members of Policy Board, Raymond, Suarez, and Yakos. I think if we need more people, we can add more people. I did send out an email, and just wanted to share that update with everybody that we're in process. Staff is looking through all the chapters and making sure the information is correct and up to date. But we really wanted most of our committee, TAC and Policy Board feedback to be on those goals and objectives, make sure that's in line with what the region's needs long term. So, any comments, questions? All right, we'll keep on moving. Item number 8 is regarding update on the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. Just a reminder, there is a website that has all the latest information and ways to make public comment. It's ssforaccentraltexas.org. I've heard that Google sometimes doesn't pop up, so you might have to click on the link or actually type it all the way out to get there. We did have a safety task force meeting last month, the first one, and the second meeting is tomorrow. Also in December, just some updates. We had meetings with Milam County leadership, Salvo County leadership, City of Temple, Queen Belton, Parker Heights, Nolanville, Cameron, and Rockdale, and also some meetings with Hill Country, BPAC, and the TxDOT Brenham area office, just trying to get everybody's comments on where you see concerns, where you have concerns. We're adding all of those comments into a map. We have a couple more scheduled for later this month. I think one with Bell County, and a couple others I can't recall. But we're moving forward into starting to develop the plan, and we'll also over the next few months be looking at which corridors or areas for project identification we want to look at more specifically. I know last time we gave an update that the accessory implementation grant cycle was moving up this year, so we weren't rushing. We were trying to get the plan done for then, but we are looking at where we might be able to do some demonstration projects, which are quick build, like temporary type deals to demonstrate safety ideas. And we're also looking at project corridors. So we'll be, Dan and his team, I know they've been sending lots of emails out. They'll keep reaching out. Last thing I want to mention, there were some public meetings in December, one in San Saba, one in Cameron, one in Harker Heights, and one in Temple. I think later this spring we'll be having some more, but there was a lot of great feedback from the public, and everybody knows where the safety issues are. It's kind of funny. You ask like, hey, where is it dangerous to drive? And people, they don't hesitate. They know like this road is bad, this place is bad. So a lot of good feedback. I think Anita was at some of those, and there was a bunch of comments from the public. So that make you happy, Judge. Lots of public comments for us.
You know, I love your public comments, James.
That's update on the SS4A grants. There was a lot in December, probably a little bit slower the next couple months until we pick back up again in the spring. Any comments, questions?
I'd like to just have just make a quick comment about the selection process on the NTP project. I'm sorry, I didn't mention it to you earlier, but I was going to say this, but just very briefly, I think, I know we're in the middle of the process right now, and I've talked to James and you, Ryan, with some suggestions on how maybe we could improve it, and I'm using those words kind of nice, but I guess y'all may not agree. But I'd like for us to consider, as we go forward into the other rounds, and we set some procedures for the evaluation of the projects, particularly in the subjective scoring here, that we rethink that process. And let me, kind of preface it by saying that we all apply for these projects. We all want the funding. We all need to do what we need to do to get the dollars on our projects. And I fully appreciate that. Where I'm coming from is the subjective scoring process is very challenging from our perspective. And we just, I think there may be a better way to do it. One of the experiences that I've had, and I share this with Jamie, I just want to share it with you all as well, that prior to getting into this role as planning director of the grants coordinator, we applied for grants through the COG, and one of the systems that the COG used was that when we were ready to submit our project, or after we submitted our project, we were able to make a short presentation on our project. And the selection group, which in that case was the Criminal Justice Advisory Board, in this case it might be the TAC, or a combination of the policy board, would listen to some presentations based on the community's priority projects and rank them such. That information would go into the ranking of the plan, the ranking of the projects, and they would be considered along with the others. Because we all know that even though we have about 20 or so projects in the listing, as y'all probably painfully are aware, there's only, there's a lot of other projects. We would bring forward the top priority project development, and EPER would bring theirs. would make those presentations very short, brief to the point, and the group would score them based on the information that we received. And the presentation would hit on those items that are key in the subject matter, obviously it needs to be done. So my goal for saying all this today is to just kind of plant seed for upcoming project calls, and then we discover or discern and discuss maybe a more streamlined process, a more interactive process. I use those words carefully because we used to do bus tours and all this kind of stuff. And they have kind of my ground too, they gave me one of those little driving things put on the desk. And so we did it virtually 1 year and we were in person the time before that, which I wasn't involved with because I wasn't in this role. So I just like for us to, maybe think about that as we go through the process the next time around. So, we're doing what we're doing here, and we'll go through the process. And James and I talked, and James would say, yeah, this was the last time was your first time through the process. It's kind of like, okay, we just have a system, we're going to roll with the system, me too, and then we kind of decide, where we might be able to make some improvements, if any. This is just Bob talking. We may not agree. Find some challenges in the words that I'm using, but I'd like for that to be an honest component to the conversations in the future. So, anyway, just wanted to share that at this point. We'll kind of lay it on the table and maybe we can pick it up as we get on through the process in the next.
So show of hands, who has been on a bus tour before?
Victims, yeah. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you do that, absolutely.
I think you hit some good points because, and Jason, jump in here because I think you've got more longevity.
That's what I did, the show of hands.
If I recall, like 4 years ago, maybe right when I was just getting on here, maybe right before, there was presentations. And then I think there was the decision that kind of like you're following along. It's like, okay, we can see it, but we can't really put it all together. So the bus tour was scheduled. And I, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, can't devote that much time.
It's a full day.
It really is. And so then I think then the hybrid of that was the virtual. I don't know what the best combination is, but I do like the idea of people being able to present their project because I can read your words, but your words are going to mean more to you than they are to me just reading. There's certain areas that I won't key in on. It's because I'm not a planner, I'm not a transportation person, I'm just kind of Joe Citizen. So to hear a short presentation on it, and then if we could ask staff as these are, if there's an overall big picture of where we can at least see that they're, located within the region. I'm throwing it out there. That's kind of a spitball.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to open up the can of worms of trying to decide anything or, engage in a great deal of conversation. We're at the end of the meeting. All these procedures have already been established. I'm just suggesting that we think about that. And I appreciate you, bringing up the other kind of, the other aspect of the past. And then, maybe incorporating that into the system on the next call. Which is just a couple of years from now. So anyway, I don't want to tie everybody's time up. I know we got stuff to do, but I just wanted to kind of throw it up.
I mean, it's an open book for the scoring criteria. I've been through several revisions, on the MPO side and then have been on the city side. Priority community's priorities and their desireship and whether they see, it is something that I perceive kind of being on the outside was cities trying to give us this, you're incentivized to do so. I want to make sure these criteria are going to benefit me. I mean, you shoot yourself in your foot if you don't. But if we do find as a group that we all agree, you know, okay, no one got shot, the rest of us got money. Sucks to suck. But if we all feel like we're getting the short end of the stick, then some of the criteria is broken, the weighting's broken. We've revised it several times. So that there's no reason to not revisit those if the presentation is part of that process. If the safety criteria needs to be weighted higher. You know, I remember Bobby and I, when we did have the work group for the scoring criteria. I was thinking, hey, let's get more subjectivity. And Bobby said, no, that's not what we want. And I had missed one of the meetings that we as a group decided that's not what we want. Okay. So that's where we're at. But that seesaw can tilt back and forth. So if we find that something's not serving us as a group, let's fix it. These criteria are not given to us. There are criteria. We decided what we wanted. They're carbon jello.
Speaking of fixing it, Jane, that, the major activity center on the scoring sheet, will that be coming out this week? And for those of you who may not have noticed, it did not include any of the current hospitals. It didn't include the last updated map that we had all discussed. It was a very old one that got included in the packet. So when you're scoring, it skewed things.
Yeah. And thanks, Christina, for, I meant to mention that Christina noticed a few things and
Only
sent over to you know, we will be sending out, we're working on, it was a miscommunication where just the wrong map got added. And so we're working on updating that. We'll send out the revised one, the major activity centers. If you recall last time we added all of the K-12 schools in there because that was they're big traffic generators for the purpose of scoring. The TAC felt like that needed to be in there.
Yep.
Projects near those are more valuable. So yeah, there will be an update. And thanks Bob, everybody for your comments. I think what you and I have communicated is we've locked into the process for this time. It's been approved. We can't change it now, but we're definitely, staff wants to have a conversation afterward, maybe this summer when it's finished about, hey, what was good, what was not good, how can we improve it? I know we did that last time, but it was 2020 and everybody knows 2020 was just a weird year. So I think, anyways, we're happy to have a conversation, even if we need to have a workshop or something in the summer or later this year while it's still fresh in everyone's mind. Because 2 years from now, people will have forgotten maybe, I know I've forgotten what we talked about last time.
Well, you get staff turnover.
Yeah.
Like you said, I got longevity, but there's folks that, you know, maybe if, you know, our first time just go through one of these. Wait, why do we have that as a criteria? Why is that subjective? Why is that not an objective measure? Good question, because sometimes you get so stuck in, well, we've always done it this way. There's no reason to keep doing that.
All right, well, item number nine is next, which is regarding an update on the possible MPO boundary expansion. I don't have any new news. We're still waiting on text dot. I know with the holidays, I think it's plugging for out the last few weeks. So we'll keep sharing an update. I know Ryan had some progress with getting some information from them, so we're still hoping that to come in here in the next little bit.
Jay, whatever came with the bid, of just expanding those two little pockets around SH9 and Fort Brazos.
We did approve those, and I actually need to circle back and see if that's still waiting on FH24 or if we need to adjust our maps. But yes, we did agree with those changes. So,
thank you.
Yeah. Move on, item number 10 regarding public input received through December 2023. And while I mentioned we had a lot of SS3A comments, we did not receive any MPO comments to share. I know it's the first month in a while that there haven't been any the holiday season.
James, you weren't taking the brush up there.
Item number 11 is member comments. If anybody has anything they want to share. I got it, right. Yeah. Jay,
Yes, sir.
you used to work with college?
Yes. I moved from the COG over to City Temple in 2018.
I was on this committee.
Yes.
That's what I said, who's been on this to it? I was thinking you and me were the only ones that raised our hands, so.
They put my name on it and put on here. That's Ancient history.
I'd like to throw one out there for the committee's consideration. We're about 90 days away from this apocalyptic eclipse. And then I think there's varying degrees of planning and those kind of things going on. And I do, regardless of, what the amount is, I believe there's going to be an impact on our transportation systems, in that. Do y'all think it's worthwhile to maybe give quick local updates, share kind of what you're planning in kind of a very condensed manner in these meetings? Because I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm trying to glean everything I can from somebody else. I found out that I'm more successful when I copy somebody when I try to figure it out on my own. I know there's not a whole lot of reaction time given that it's about 90 days away, but I would welcome y'all's comments as to what y'all are planning, anticipating, and I don't know if this is the right forum, but I do believe that from my standpoint, it's very going to be, heavy transportation related.
So our police chief gave an update to council, I want to say it was December. What they've done, planning, talking to businesses, Walmart, big parking lots, retail areas. Crossroads Park in Temple, another big city parks where they expect people to gather. One of the things that struck me was it's not the influx of people. They're going to come in bits and pieces. It's going to be like leaving the football game. Everybody's going to leave as soon as that sun shifts off again. That's when the gridlock's going to happen. So that's what they're trying to anticipate, having some traffic control plans in place to get folks back on the road. And, part of the messaging is, you can just wait a day, just stay here an extra day, spend some money in our restaurants, buy some gas in our gas station, and then leave.
And I'm following that. That's kind of the same thing I've been briefed on is, a trickle in and mass exodus. So one of the things I'm working on right now, and again, as I'm trying to expand some things to maybe have a little bit more influence is, I'm drafting a letter to TxDOT to see if they will, restrict oversized and heavy load limit or heavy load permits for a 48 to 72 hour period, like Sunday through Tuesday ideally. If nothing else, if I can get it Monday and Tuesday, April 8th and April 9th. Because that's what, from Will County's analysis, that's what we're going to see is going to be our biggest challenge. Our two, or say two, US 84 and Texas 36 are heavy haul corridors. And so that's what I'm trying to address. If y'all think it is worthwhile, then I don't mind discussing this with you, Ryan, and see if we can't get a letter drafted that would be on behalf of the region requesting TxDOT to limit those permits or restrict those permits for that 72 or 48 hour period. And again, I'm throwing it out there just kind of as a discussion point. Had I had a little bit more foresight, I would have submitted that or talk about more formal on it. Welcome your feedback or input on any of that.
So you're talking about disrupting the supply chain.
Yes.
So with that, you're moving in and consuming the supply, and you want to limit the supply now on top of that? You might be creating a catastrophe.
Yeah.
This is just for the heavy and oversized permit. I'm not talking about regular trucking and distribution.
You're talking like manufactured homes.
And window parts.
Windows,
I mean, I don't know if you get window parts. I mean, you look at my window.
You do.
You know,
Yeah.
and I get window parts, and if there's an incident or accident, that literally shuts down that entire corridor. Yeah, I'm not, I'm not talking about Walmart or the gas truck delivery. I'm not trying to disrupt that. I'm talking about specifically those that are oversized,
The safety vehicle,
that kind of
Yeah.
thing that, because an incident with that type of, logistic, distribute has more of an impact than just a regular delivery truck.
Well, just from the tractor flow, you've got one of those extra wide loads, big, mining excavator, not just whatever. It effectively takes up 2 lanes. A lot of times it hangs over and people are getting an extra cushion as they pass, and you turn the 3-lane highway into 1 lane. So, I mean, I think from that standpoint, yeah, even if there's not an accident, you're just allowing that traffic to flow better.
Yes. Because, regular, 18-wheeler, like a Walmart truck, right, that's,
Yeah.
it's just in a lane, just like any other vehicle. And I don't see there being any more risk or any less risk because of this event, that there would be an accident there. It's the oversized and heavy haul loads that become a concern for my city.
Yep.
I don't know how much y'all see of that specifically in your areas. But like I said, Coryell County, we have those crossroads, but we do see that pretty regularly. And
Right. Well, I guess the question is, how far in advance does TxDOT give those oversized permits?
I talked briefly with Victor, and he said there's some permits out there right now that they know that they've already issued.
Yeah.
And I think 6-8 months is not, because then whoever that vendor is that's moving that, it gives them enough planning time to figure out when do I pick it up and how am I getting it there and how, where's my delivery date. So I may have missed the window already. But if I don't ask, I know what the answer is. I would rather ask and be told no, or have some, than to not ask at all. But then, and then the other side of that is, if you're willing, as we have our meetings the next couple of months, kind of just give those updates of where everybody is with their transportation plan and coordination for the.
So the city of Copper Cove has already posted a tile on our homepage. And so we anticipate a large influx of people coming in because we're pretty much at ground zero. And so we have already sold out all of our hotels. They're already, if they more than you want to. We anticipate a lot of RVers coming in, dry campers, that sort of thing. We've opened up several of our city parks to accommodate people.
So City of Parker Heights, we're not posting an event on the day of, are on the 2 days, that Saturday, Sunday. We kind of figure that we're going to be the pass through as people try to get to Copper's Cove and they'll pass this area. We have also talked to our businesses, and we have a couple town halls set up to talk to the businesses and the general public. The businesses, though, we've told them basically that they are responsible for their own parking lots. Our PD will not be responding unless it's a true life safety issue. And so we do have planned to have split up, since we are bisected by I-14 and have very few crossover sections. We have planned to split up our units as well as our staff to assist at the parks, and then that frees up our officers. There's kind of a divide and conquer. We are, and I think there's only 3 places to cross the river, but people are going to be utilizing those access roads to try to get across, and we figure we won't be able to.
Judge, I can talk to your item about maybe adding that to our agenda, just so it's a standing.
I mean, you don't have to, I want to make sure that if that's something that the group would be interested in.
Yes, so
I think it's important. Mass coming at us, and we've been kicking this around from a transit perspective, and we have not come to a conclusion yet. On one hand, I want to pull the buses off the road, get them out of the way. But on the other hand, there's so many more people that will need transportation, so we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, can we encourage employers to have work from home as much as possible?
Yeah.
But I know that Cordell County, we don't have it as a scheduled holiday. But our county offices won't be open on Monday, on the actual April 8th day.
My knowledge, Temple hasn't made a decision. We may be a little bit off the main line, so.
And I will say in the Bell County emergency management meeting, there was a discussion where the county was considering it and would announce at the next meeting, and then a lot of the cities indicated they would do whatever the county did. But as of right now, I know our offices will be open, but there'll be minimal staff.
And I know that I've got confirmation at least 2 of our school districts are not going to have classes that day. It's more precautionary measure. Kind of just taking an ounce of prevention's worth of pound of cure. Don't need a bus accident out there.
Risk first, avoid. What are you going to move places like this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
KISD also indicated they won't be open and boarding classes.
Hill County, Pacific Sheriff. Stand up and go to the ridge and fix something if they hit equipment or something.
But yeah, that's kind of how we are, is, law enforcement, and then, preparing everything to set up for any type of emergency response. I'm not trying to be overly pessimistic, but there's some crazies out there. I don't know if y'all are aware of that, but there's some crazies out there. And yeah, it just, okay, well. Sorry, I didn't get it all.
It's good discussion. Any other comments before we adjourn for today? Thank you, everybody, for being here. Happy New Year. We're adjourned at 10:39. Good job.